Hello, and welcome to today's presentation, which will give you an introduction to the topic of transport in the body as part of your Junior Cycle Science programme. I have chosen this topic as it will develop your understanding of biology from your primary school days. In primary school, you will have learned about the structure of the major internal and external organs of the body. You will also have learned about the effects that lifestyle factors, such as smoking, can have on your health. In the new junior cycle, which you are studying, this topic falls under the strand of the biological world, which is underpinned by the unifying strand, the nature of science. This topic will help to create links within the biological world strand, with links to nutrition and the digestive system. The subtopics that we will focus on today are the blood and the blood vessels. After this presentation, you should be able to explain the overall function of the cardiovascular system, outline the different components of blood and describe their functions, and finally, identify the different types of blood vessels and explain their functions. This topic has links with other subjects which you are studying. You will hear about the cardiovascular system and the benefits and importance of exercise for a healthy heart, body and mind in physical education and SPHE. Literacy will be developed as you will be communicating and interpreting information, along with identifying new keywords which you may not have seen before or may not be familiar with. These keywords will be highlighted with an asterisk throughout the presentation. Numeracy will be developed through problem solving and becoming spatially aware of the layout of the blood vessels. And the key skills of managing myself, communicating, working with others, being creative and managing information and thinking will be integrated throughout this presentation. So, why do we need a transport system in our bodies? Well, our bodies need a transport system in order to move different materials from one place to another. For example, food, oxygen and waste products have to be moved to and from all the cells in our body. Our transport system, or circulatory system, includes the blood, a system of tubes or blood vessels, and the heart, which is needed to pump blood through the blood vessels and around the body. Blood. What's in our blood? Blood is made up of 4 different parts or components. These are plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. I'm sure you've heard of some of these, but you may not be fully sure of what they mean. But don't worry, we're going to examine each one individually. First up is plasma. Plasma is the liquid part of the blood. It is pale yellow in colour and is mostly made of water. Plasma is responsible for transporting many dissolved chemicals around the body. These chemicals include useful materials, such as food and oxygen, and also wastes like carbon dioxide. Plasma also transports heat around the body. This heat is produced by many different chemical reactions in our bodies. For this reason, plasma and our blood play a really important role in the maintaining of our body temperature, which we know is 37 degrees. Red blood cells are made in the bone marrow, which is found in the centre of the bones. Our blood contains huge numbers of red blood cells. These red blood cells contain a chemical or a pigment called hemoglobin, which gives the cells their red colour. To make hemoglobin, we need iron. Hemoglobin, and therefore red blood cells, carries oxygen. Oxygen enters our blood cells in the lungs, where it attaches to the hemoglobin. When the blood reaches cells in other parts around our body, such as the muscles or the brain, hemoglobin will release the oxygen into these cells. Next up are white blood cells. These are also made in the bone marrow. However, their function is to fight infection. They do this in 2 ways. Some white blood cells will surround microorganisms, such as bacteria and viruses, and destroy them. Others will form antibodies. Antibodies are proteins that help destroy microorganisms when they enter the body. Antibodies are really important for our bodies to be able to fight off infection. Platelets. Platelets are formed in the bone marrow when large cells break down into smaller ones. Platelets help to form blood clots, which help to prevent the loss of blood and help to prevent microorganisms from entering the body. Now for a task. Work in pairs to find out what problems each of the following might cause: a lack of iron, a lack of white blood cells, a lack of platelets, and a lack of blood. When ready, we will present what we have found back to the class. Now, Before we move on, it's important to recap on what we've learned so far. We know that there are 4 components of blood and that each one has its own function. Plasma transports materials such as food and wastes. It also maintains the temperature. Red blood cells transport oxygen, white blood cells fight infection, and platelets form clots. Next, we will look at blood vessels, which we mentioned earlier. Blood vessels are the tubes responsible for moving blood around the body. There are 3 main types of blood vessel: artery, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Think of A for artery and A for away to help you remember. Arteries have thick walls, as seen in the diagram. And as arteries carry blood away from the heart, there is a strong flow of blood within them. This means that the blood in the arteries is under high pressure. Veins are the opposite of arteries. They carry blood to the heart. Veins have much thinner walls than arteries, and the blood flow through them is under low pressure. Capillaries are tiny blood vessels found between the arteries and the veins. They have very thin walls, which allows for the exchange of materials between the blood and the cells of the body. We've covered a lot so far. Before we cover the structure of the heart and the pathway of the blood, it's important to make sure we understand what we've covered up to now. So, let's do a quick check using our traffic light cards. We will look at a series of true or false statements and use our green card to indicate if we think the statement is true, and the red card if we think the statement is false. Food, oxygen, and waste products are all materials that are transported in our blood. Yes, this is true. Transporting food, oxygen, and water is the main function of our cardiovascular system. Plasma plays a role in maintaining our body temperature. Yes, this is also true. We know plasma transports heat around the body and so helps to maintain our body temperature at 37 degrees. Red blood cells are responsible for fighting infection in our body. This is false. We learned earlier that red blood cells transport oxygen and white blood cells fight infection. One last one for today. Veins carry blood away from the heart. False. We know veins carry blood to the heart and that arteries carry blood away from the heart. So, you should now be able to explain the overall function of the cardiovascular system, outline the different components of the blood and describe their functions, and identify the different types of blood vessels and explain their functions. Finally, if you could take a minute to complete this emoji exit ticket to reflect on your learning experience in this presentation. Thank you for your attention.